Hey there, I'm Elizabeth Henson. Welcome to the Messy Success Podcast, where I'm helping creative dreamers and overachievers tackle business and life. After 6 years of being my own boss, I finally unraveled a tiny bit of what it takes to survive in this amazing world of being an overly creative entrepreneur. I'm your business bestie, here to help you with all those big ideas and to normalize some of the day-to-day struggles that we all share. My mission is simple. I want more women to make a living doing what they love and to feel good about themselves in the process. The best way to start? We can't do it alone. So welcome. I hope you'll hang out with me here where it's totally okay to be messy. Hello, you guys. Welcome to another episode of the Messy Success Podcast. Your host, Elizabeth Henson here. This is going to be a really kind of juicy and fun episode. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to share with you a little behind the scenes of what it's like to work with me one-on-one. So I have an awesome student who's actually in her second round working with me one-on-one, and she really does a great job of using the Voxer access to me. So all my one-on-one students, they get access to me via Voxer. So if you're not familiar with the app, it's called Voxer, and it is basically a walkie-talkie app, but it gives you the freedom to talk and respond like in the cracks of your day when it's really convenient. And it's kind of like the benefits of a phone call, but the freedom and flexibility of a text message. I've been using Voxer for probably about 12 years. I'm not even kidding. It's been around forever. I remember like living in my old teeny tiny 800 square foot apartment. And that was when I started using Voxer with my friends. So it's a way of life for me. I actually prefer it over text message any day. When I'm really busy and on the go, it's really my preferred method of contact. For people who are pretty close in my network or my circle, I really use it for close friends and a few select one-on-one clients. And I really love it. It just makes, talking so convenient and fun. And I'm a very verbal problem solver. So it's a really great tool. And honestly, most of my students don't really take full advantage, but this student does. And we Vox a couple times every week. It's so great. So I had a message from her last night and a message from her this morning. And I was actually at my computer when I got to listen. And Gracie was in virtual school, so I knew I wasn't really going to be able to use voice to talk back. So I opened up my email and started making notes. I was going to send her an email, and I was writing down things as she was saying them. And it allowed me to really dig in a different way than I would if we were just having a conversation back and forth. And, I just love this flexibility with my clients because a lot of them are busy moms, this one specifically, and myself. And, we just want to keep the conversation going. You want to keep the needle moving in your business. Sorry, there's some type of lawnmower or something outside. That's always fun. I'm just going to keep it going though, you guys. I mentioned that these episodes are not going to be perfectly curated by any means. So we're going to roll with the punches. But anyway, the flexibility of just keeping these conversations going, moving the needle for my clients and their business, and keeping these conversations navigating in the right direction. So I'm going to share with you exactly what this conversation looked like. So the notes that I wrote down as she was kind of brain dumping to me, right? Just brain dumping. She was actually responding to some questions I had already asked her. So the first thing I wrote down was she stated, word for word, I need to market to the people who think I'm worth it. So here is how I respond to a statement like that. So the way that you see your business will determine what's possible, right? We as business owners, the way we see our business, that is what determines what's possible. Not what other people think, not what other people think we're worth. We get to determine what's possible. And the way that we market and communicate our value is going to mirror exactly what we bring in. So we want the people that are coming to us to be our guide, and that's our feedback of what exactly we're putting out. So what we put out is what we're going to bring in. So just keep that in mind, that we don't want to sit back and play the game of allowing everyone else to run our business, allowing other people to determine what's possible. We have to determine what's possible. And that was actually a really great thing discussed in our group coaching call yesterday, was, boundaries with clients. And if clients are overstepping boundaries, then, we have to kind of put our big girl pants on, and we have to run our own business. Like, don't allow your clients to run your business. Just like we don't want to allow our audience to determine what's possible. We determine what's possible. So I just thought that was such a great little golden nugget, because we just tend to get in these headspaces of, well, this is what the people want. The people want me to take this kind of photograph, so that's what I'm going to do. The people want more of this, so that's what I'm going to do. Instead of turning inward as the CEO of our business and being like, this is our product, this is our service, and we're going to attract the people who need it. Think about Apple. Like, they don't just listen to everyone else when they decide, to design the iPhone for the first time. They design it and they put it out to the world, and then people can, decide if they want it or don't want it. Now, of course, there's like valuable feedback and surveys and customer reviews, and we do want to navigate certain experiences based on the feedback that we're getting. But again, it's going to be that mirror of what we're putting out is what we're going to get back. Okay. The next thing I wrote down is, if you guys are familiar with me, I'm a huge fan of just light and easy. This was a breaking point for me in my business a couple of years ago, of just deciding that I want my business to be light and easy, and starting to think about what that looks like. And we can never obtain light and easy if we don't become clear on what exactly light and easy looks like. So she said, I want everything to be light and easy, but it's just not light and easy. So again, the question I asked back was, what does light and easy look like? And I know this specific student has her kids home a lot. So I'm already like, I already know the situation that light and easy would probably be more childcare, but that's not up to me to decide, right? Like, as a business coach, I'm never going to tell someone what to do. I'm just going to continue to ask questions to see if they can self-navigate in the right direction. So the question I would ask would be, if you could build light and easy with a clear picture in mind, what does that look like? Right? And most moms would say something like, well, I would have childcare, I would have a babysitter. Okay. So we need to work towards that, or we need to say, this is a non-negotiable. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second, our non-negotiables, and just realizing that everything is figure outable. And that's the angle we have to come from. Everything is figure outable. So how do I get there? What does this look like? Instead of just sitting back into, it's too hard or this isn't possible. Okay, so the next thing that she said was, she's stuck trying to find the balance. We can go ahead and navigate that, that's the work-life balance, and bring in more revenue. So I kicked back with, describe balance in your life. How can we make that possible? Everything is figure outable. So let's talk about the non-negotiables, because that was my next question. What are your non-negotiables? So a non-negotiable might be staying home with kids, right? Like, you either commit to finding childcare or you commit to having kids at home, right? Like, we shouldn't allow ourselves to suffer in the gray area. I did that for so long when we lost our in-home daycare facility and had all that trauma back in 2016. And, we were on the waiting list to get them back in school. And I had all these babysitters that, would either show up late or call out. Oh my gosh. Like, I lived in the gray area of like, my kids are home. I need help. I can't do this. Like, finding nooks and crannies of time, but like knowing that I didn't have the headspace to do what I needed to do. So priority number one needs to be, what's a non-negotiable. And if the kids staying home is an absolute non-negotiable, then we need to flip the narrative and make it about how can I find time? At what point during the day will my 3 kids, or however many kids you might have, or whatever your distraction is, not that kids are a distraction, I don't need to put that disclaimer in there, but whatever's keeping you from operating as a badass CEO in your business, right? How can we start to see the possibility versus the scarcity? Even when it comes to time, time is no different. When you look at your day, where is the possibility of time to work on your business instead of, I can't get anything done because XYZ, right? Because if that's a non-negotiable, then we have to flip the internal narrative, or we have to put our big girl pants on and find a solution, right? So what does the solution look like? Everything is figure outable. And then let's touch on the revenue piece. So if you want to make more revenue, we have to make more offers. But just remembering that what we're bringing in is mirroring what we're putting out. And I know sometimes it's like, you're like, man, I'm doing all the right things. I'm putting all the right content out there, right? And you might be, but it might not be polarizing enough. It might not be standing out from the masses enough. And somehow it is still related to whatever you're putting out is what you're going to draw in. So if you're finding that you feel like you're getting it all right, you feel like you're talking about all the right things and you're still not getting responses that you're looking for, then it might just not be, I can't think of another word to use besides polarizing or, an unpopular opinion, or in very simple terms, like what makes you stand out from everyone else who's doing what you're doing, right? Like what makes you different than everyone else who does what you do? Because we might just be blending in. It might not be that we're getting anything wrong. We just might be blending in with the masses. All right. The next one could be a whole episode, but I also feel like it's kind of talked to death. And that's like kind of the comparison trap, right? So this is one of my students who's also, of course, in Shine Light Society. And, there's not a lot. We have a very mixed bag of members. We have some members who are just starting out. We have some members who are, in multiple 6 figures already. It's all over the place. So, she was falling into a little bit of the comparison trap. And, we just have to remind ourselves that our journey is the only journey that matters, right? Like we all do it. Everyone is human. I was just in a Facebook group a second ago and it was like, the comparison, it's, I get it. We all do it. But we have to focus on the internal narrative and ask ourselves, like, what do I gain from comparing myself to this person? How is thinking about this serving me? How is it moving the needle in my business? Our brain is always going to retract to what's comfortable and safe, right? So if we're constantly comparing ourselves to other people, then we're going to continue to mirror those thoughts and we're going to continue to play small. And we're going to continue to focus on lack and scarcity versus asking ourselves better questions about, is this serving me, right? Where can I bring my attention that is going to actually serve me and move the needle in my business? And it might be as simple as, where was I a year ago? Instead of looking at this person and how far ahead of us they are, where was I a year ago? Where am I now? Where do I want to go, right? How can I get there? How can I move the needle today to get me one little teeny tiny step closer? Because you guys, I joke all the time that I move at a snail's pace, right? And on the outside looking in, it might be like, oh, I do all these things. I have so many different pillars to my business and la 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 la. But like, I move at a snail's pace. I'm only spending about 5 to 10 hours in my own business right now. But all that matters is that I just move that needle a little bit every single week. And it all adds up. If you move the needle in your business a little bit every week, there's 52 weeks in a year. That is 52 steps towards your goal. That adds up, and it doesn't have to be all day, every day. It can be in the nooks and crannies of your day. just moving that needle one little step. And that's just if you do weeks. What if you do 3 days a week? I can't do math, but that would be 52 times 3. That's a lot. That is a lot of steps towards your goal. So what if we think about it from that perspective rather than look at where Sally is and that's where I want to go? Well, Sally is probably moving the needle for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, right? Which is a huge amount of opportunity and progress. But the only journey that matters is our own. Okay. A couple other things that we wrote down. She doesn't know where to move the needle. Again, it's hard with the kids in the house and needing more help and needing time and space to think. So I feel like I already covered this, but let's just recap. So what I wrote back to her was, rather than being stuck, let's become part of the solution. And you guys, this is so cute because, I just got back from visiting a friend in Florida and, all the kids were just misbehaving. And my friend said, let's be part of the solution, not the problem. And I was like, gosh, I just love that phrase. We can just apply that to business. We can apply it to life. We can apply it to everything. And it just felt so real here. Like, let's become part of the solution. So rather than I need this, I need that, it feels difficult. Okay, let's acknowledge that it feels difficult, but let's start being part of the solution and asking, again, those better questions. How can you obtain the time and space you need? Again, if having kids home is a non-negotiable, we need to change the relationship and the internal narrative. How can I create space while the kids are home? Right? If it's a non-negotiable. But we don't want to live in the gray area of, I need this, I need that, but not actually taking the action steps to get what you need, which might be childcare, or might be an in-home nanny, it might be, there's a million different solutions, right? But we have to either take action to the solutions or just say, hey, this is actually a non-negotiable for this chapter of my life. So this is how I'm going to change the internal narrative, and this is how I'm going to create the space that I need. And it might not be as much, right? Like if we're craving 5 hours to work on our business, but the reality is we can only fit in 1 or 2, then that's where we need to say, how can I move the needle in this 1 or 2 hours versus focusing on what we can't do and the energy we don't have and the headspace that we don't have. And I know that's so much easier said than done. None of this happens overnight. We're looking at, January of 2019 was when I started to make a lot of these changes. So we're looking at 2 years and 2 months later where I'm speaking with this much confidence and knowing that this is how we solve these problems from the inside out, from our internal narrative out, asking ourselves better questions and really being part of the solution. Because we have the power to do that. We have the power to do anything we want, but it has to come from our mind because we are what we think about. And if we continually think about scarcity and not having enough of anything, time, money, food, childcare, exercise, right? Anything. If we are constantly focusing on not having enough, that is going to be exactly what we continue to bring to life, exactly what we continue to bring to fruition. So we don't have to have the answers, but we have to ask ourselves the questions. How can I make this process feel light and easy? What would a light and easy process look like and feel like in my business or in my life? And where do I want to go, right? The first thing I do with students is get super clear on exactly where they want to go. Because if we don't know where you want to go, I can't help you get there, right? And I used to just sit down at my desk and say, okay, I'm going to work today. But I didn't actually know what the destination was, right? Even if it's a short-term destination, a long-term destination, we have to have an idea in our mind of what that destination looks like. Does it look like full-time childcare and sitting at, your desk for 6 to 8 hours a day? Does it look like part-time childcare? What does it look like? What is the solution? And how can we be part of the solution? I love it. Okay, so that is what conversations look like working with me. You guys just got a little snippet of it. So, I would love to hear your questions if you want me to cover one of your questions specifically on the podcast. I feel like with the training that I've been doing under James Wedmore, like I can handle any question you guys throw at me. Like if it's technology or something like that, of course we can hop on Google, but you really don't want to spend your time asking business coaches like Googleable questions because there's Google, right? So you want to ask your business coaches the hard questions, the questions that you can't figure out, where you feel stuck in your life, where you feel like there's a problem that you just can't figure out, right? Maybe it's, I want to hire, but my business isn't generating enough revenue. That's one we hear a lot. Or how do I start outsourcing? Or how do I find more time in my business, right? So many good directions we could go. But thank you guys so much. I am so, so grateful that I was able to fit this podcast in. And I'm so grateful that my amazing student just sent me those beautiful thoughts and questions and help me, generate something that is share worthy. I love sharing this stuff with you guys. And I know she's going to really love this episode as well. So I'm just grateful that we made it all happen and that I also, am being part of the solution. And my problem was figuring out what it would look like to bring the podcast back. And I'm figuring it out, right? I'm being part of the solution. All right, you guys, have a great rest of your week. And thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to leave us a review or just share on Instagram if you listen. That really makes my day, knowing that people are out there listening. It can feel like I'm just talking into a mic endlessly, but thank you guys so much. And I'll see you next week.